Have you ever wondered how people kept food fresh before electricity? Root cellars aren't just holes in the ground. They're actually fascinating examples of natural engineering that harness the Earth's own cooling system. Deep beneath our feet, the ground maintains a remarkably steady temperature throughout the year, typically between 34 degrees Fahrenheit and 40 degrees Fahrenheit. This temperature sweet spot is what makes root cellars work their magic. At 34 degrees Fahrenheit, something incredible happens. This temperature is just above freezing, which means your vegetables won't turn into ice cubes, but it's cold enough to significantly slow down the natural decay process. Vegetables and fruits are still alive after being harvested, and just like us, they breathe and release heat. The cool temperature slows down their respiration rate, which means they stay fresh much longer than they would at room temperature. But temperature is only half the story. Humidity plays an equally crucial role in this underground preservation dance. Most root cellars maintain humidity levels between 85% and 95%. This might sound like a tropical rainforest, but there's a good reason for all that moisture. Without high humidity, your carrots would turn into carrot sticks that could double as drumsticks, and your potatoes would shrivel up faster than a balloon at a pin factory. The natural moisture in the earth helps maintain this perfect humidity level. A dirt floor isn't just cheaper than concrete, it's actually a crucial component of the root cellar's preservation system. The earth naturally releases and absorbs moisture, acting like a giant humidity regulator. It's like having a smart humidifier that never needs to be plugged in or refilled. What makes these natural cooling systems even more remarkable is their energy efficiency. While modern refrigerators hum away day and night, consuming electricity and contributing to your monthly bills, root cellars work in complete silence, powered by nothing more than the laws of physics. The Earth's thermal mass acts as a natural insulator, keeping the temperature steady regardless of whether it's a scorching summer day or a freezing winter night outside. Different foods have different sweet spots for storage. Root vegetables like carrots, potatoes, and beets thrive in the cooler, more humid lower areas of the cellar. Apples and pears prefer slightly cooler temperatures with moderate humidity, while onions and garlic do better in drier, slightly warmer spots. It's like having different climate zones in your own underground food storage system. The science behind air circulation in root cellars is equally fascinating. Warm air rises while cool air sinks, a simple principle that root cellars use to maintain proper ventilation. Many traditional designs include two vents, one near the floor to let in cool air and another near the ceiling to let warm air escape. This creates a natural convection current that keeps the air fresh and helps prevent mold growth. You could say it's the original smart home technology, no batteries required. Speaking of keeping things natural, one of the most interesting aspects of root cellar science is how it prevents premature sprouting. The darkness and cool temperatures trick vegetables into thinking it's still winter, so they don't start trying to grow. It's like putting your vegetables into a gentle hibernation until you're ready to eat them. And while we're talking about natural building materials and insulation techniques, you'll be amazed at how the Amish have perfected these principles using nothing but traditional materials. The next time someone tells you they're going green by buying a new energy-efficient fridge, tell them about the Amish approach to food storage. Their root cellars are the original green technology, and it all starts with the materials they choose. Stone is the superstar of root cellar construction, and for good reason. These aren't just any rocks picked up from the backyard. We're talking about carefully selected stones that fit together like a giant underground puzzle. Each stone plays its part in creating walls that can be up to 2 feet thick. Modern buildings might scoff at such excess, but there's a method to this masonry madness. These thick walls act like a thermal battery, absorbing and releasing heat so slowly that the inside temperature barely changes, even when Mother Nature is having a mood swing outside. Clay is another MVP in the natural materials lineup. When packed properly, clay creates an almost impenetrable barrier against both heat and moisture. The Amish have known for generations what modern builders are just rediscovering. Clay can maintain a steady temperature better than most modern insulation materials. Plus, it doesn't off-gas harmful chemicals like some synthetic materials do. Your vegetables might not care about breathing in toxins, but your lungs certainly do when you're retrieving those potatoes for dinner. Here's a fact that might surprise you. The thermal mass of a properly built stone wall is equivalent to about 8 to 12 inches of modern fiberglass insulation. But unlike fiberglass, stone doesn't lose its insulating properties over time, and you definitely won't get itchy if you brush against it. Well, unless you brush against it too hard, then you might get more than just itchy. The dirt floor isn't just about saving money on concrete, though that's certainly a nice bonus. A properly prepared earth floor is actually a crucial component of the root cellar's humidity control system. The natural soil underneath allows moisture to move up and down as needed, maintaining that perfect humidity level that keeps your vegetables crisp instead of mushy. It's like having a smart humidity control system, except this one runs on dirt instead of algorithms. Wood also plays a crucial role, particularly in the ceiling construction, but not just any wood will do. The Amish typically use cedar or white oak for their root cellar components because these woods naturally resist rot and insects. The only product we'll ever promote on our channel is a book by Claude Davis, a veteran prepper, about 126 superfoods and preservation methods from crisis times like the Great Depression and wartime that are impossible to find elsewhere. We decided to promote his book because we are the last generation able to share these techniques and superfoods to our children or grandchildren. It would be a shame to see this information about highly nutritious foods and preservation methods to survive crises disappear. You can also find a book about herbal remedies from Nicole Apelian on their store. If you're watching this on TV, you can look up our channel, Frugal Solutions, on your phone or tablet and find the books by clicking the link in our channel description or any other video description. A well-built wooden ceiling structure can last for decades without treatment, which is more than can be said for most modern treated lumber. My neighbor once tried to use pressure-treated pine in his root cellar. Now his potatoes taste like they've been marinated in swimming pool water. The entrance to an Amish root cellar is another masterpiece of natural engineering. Most feature a double-door system with a small anteroom between the doors. This creates an airlock of sorts, preventing the cold air from rushing out every time someone goes in for a midnight snack. It's like having a bouncer for your cold air. Sorry, warm air, you're not on the list tonight. One of the most ingenious aspects of Amish root cellar construction is the ventilation system. Using nothing but carefully placed stones and air channels, they create a natural draft that keeps the air fresh without letting in too much warmth. Modern builders might spend thousands on mechanical ventilation systems, but the Amish achieve the same result with strategically placed holes and a good understanding of how air moves. The materials used in shelving are equally important. While modern storage might use metal or plastic shelving, Amish root cellars typically feature slatted wooden shelves made from rot-resistant woods. These allow air to circulate around the stored food while also absorbing excess moisture. The gaps between the slats are carefully calculated. Too wide and your potatoes might make a break for freedom. Too narrow and you'll lose that crucial air circulation. Even the mortar used between stones is specially chosen. Traditional lime mortar, unlike modern Portland cement, allows the walls to breathe while still maintaining their structural integrity. This breathing ability is crucial for managing moisture levels and preventing the growth of unwanted mold. It's fascinating how something as simple as the choice of mortar can make the difference between a cellar that lasts for generations and one that becomes an underground mushroom farm. And while we're on the subject of keeping things cool naturally, you won't believe how the Amish use underground water to create their own version of air conditioning. The Amish have mastered a clever trick of using underground water not as the primary cooling source, since the root cellars themselves maintain that perfect 34 degrees Fahrenheit from Earth's natural temperature, but as an additional temperature management system that helps maintain consistency year-round. Let's talk numbers for a second. While the Earth at root cellar depth maintains that crucial 34 degrees Fahrenheit temperature, underground streams typically run between 50 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Now you might be thinking, wait a minute, why would we want to introduce warmer water into our nice cool cellar? Here's where Amish ingenuity shines. They use these water systems primarily as temperature regulators and humidity controllers, not as the main cooling mechanism. During the coldest winter months, when outside temperatures can plunge well below freezing, these relatively warmer water channels actually help prevent the cellar from getting too cold. It's like having a thermal buffer that keeps things from freezing. Meanwhile, in summer, the 50 to 60 degree Fahrenheit water, while warmer than the cellar's ideal temperature, is still much cooler than the outside air. This helps reduce the impact of warm air entering when people access the cellar. The real genius lies in how the Amish use water for humidity control. By running these water channels through the walls or under the floor, they create a natural humidity regulation system. The flowing water releases just enough moisture into the air to maintain that crucial 85 to 95% humidity level that keeps vegetables crisp and fresh. My modern humidifier, meanwhile, seems to think its job is to either turn my room into a desert or a tropical rainforest with no in-between. Some Amish communities have developed sophisticated drainage systems that help maintain the cellar's temperature stability. The water channels are carefully positioned to carry away any excess heat that might seep in from above, while also providing that steady source of humidity. One wrong calculation, and you could end up with an underground swimming pool instead of a root cellar. My friend tried to replicate this system once. Let's just say his vegetables learned to swim before they learned to stay fresh. The maintenance of these water systems is another testament to Amish ingenuity. Regular cleaning is essential to prevent algae growth and maintain proper flow. But instead of using harsh chemicals, they often introduce small fish into the external water channels. These fish eat any algae that might try to build up, creating a self-cleaning system. Nature's very own maintenance crew, you might say. One particularly clever aspect of this system is how it handles seasonal changes. During summer months, when temperature regulation is most crucial, the underground water flow actually increases due to spring thaws and rain. This natural increase in flow rate provides extra temperature buffering exactly when it's needed most. It's as if the system knows exactly when to kick into high gear without any fancy sensors or smart technology. The engineering behind these water systems is surprisingly complex, despite using no modern technology. The Amish have to calculate the right slope for water flow, ensure proper drainage, and position the channels just right to maximize humidity distribution while minimizing any warming effect on the cellar's core temperature. It's like conducting an orchestra where every pipe and channel plays its part in the symphony of food preservation. Some Amish communities have even figured out how to use these water systems to create different humidity zones within the same cellar. Areas closer to the water channels maintain higher humidity for crops that need it, while areas further away stay a bit drier for produce that prefers less moisture. It's like having climate zones in your refrigerator, except this one runs on nothing but gravity and good planning. But of course, the success of any root cellar isn't just about its water systems, it's also about where you put it. The location of your cellar can make the difference between a food preservation paradise and an underground sauna. Speaking of location, the perfect spot for a root cellar is kind of like finding a parking space in a crowded mall during holiday season. It takes patience, strategy, and a bit of luck. But unlike that elusive parking spot, the Amish have turned finding the ideal cellar location into a science. First, let's talk depth. At about 10 feet underground, something magical happens. The earth maintains a nearly constant temperature year-round. According to soil temperature studies, every 10 feet you go down, the temperature variation between summer and winter decreases by about 2 degrees Fahrenheit. By the time you hit that sweet 10-foot mark, the seasonal temperature swing is less than 5 degrees Fahrenheit. My kitchen temperature swings more than that just from baking a batch of cookies. North-facing slopes are the gold standard for root cellar placement. Why? Because they receive the least direct sunlight throughout the year. The Amish figured out centuries ago what modern builders are just catching up to. The sun is like that overly enthusiastic friend who wants to help but ends up making everything too warm. A north-facing slope naturally stays cooler, giving your cellar a head start in the temperature game. The surrounding landscape plays a crucial role too. Trees can be both friends and foes. On the upside, they provide natural shade and help regulate ground temperature. On the downside, their roots can be more persistent than a telemarketer trying to reach you about your car's extended warranty. The Amish typically look for spots with mature trees nearby for shade, but not so close that roots become an issue. Drainage is another critical factor that separates a successful root cellar from an underground pool. The ground should slope away from the cellar entrance on all sides. About a 2% grade is ideal. That's approximately a 2-foot drop for every 100 feet of distance. One Amish farmer told me they call it the potato roll test. If you put a potato on the ground and it rolls away from the cellar entrance, you're on the right track. Height of the water table matters more than you might think. A high water table can turn your root cellar into a submarine. The ideal spot has a water table at least 4 feet below the cellar floor. The Amish have a clever way of testing this. They dig a test hole during the wettest season and wait 24 hours. If it stays dry, you've got yourself a winner. If it fills with water, well, maybe it's time to take up fishing instead of root cellar building. Wind patterns factor into location selection too. The ideal spot catches just enough breeze to help with ventilation, but isn't in a wind tunnel. Too much wind can actually pull the cool air right out of your cellar faster than a teenager empties the fridge after school. The Amish often use natural windbreaks like hills or tree lines to protect their cellars from excessive air movement. Here's a fascinating stat. Soil composition can affect ground temperature by up to 5 degrees Fahrenheit. Sandy soils tend to be warmer, while clay soils stay cooler. The Amish prefer locations with a good mix of clay and loam, what they sometimes call Goldilocks soil, because it's just right. Not too sandy, not too clay heavy, and definitely not full of rocks the size of bowling balls. Access is another crucial consideration. You want your cellar close enough to be convenient, but far enough from the house to maintain its cool temperature. The Amish typically aim for a distance of 50 to 100 feet from the main building. Any closer and house heat can affect the cellar. Any further and that midnight snack run becomes an expedition. The entrance orientation is particularly important. A south-facing door might as well be a solar panel, while an east-facing entrance means morning sun hits it when the air is coolest. Most Amish root cellars feature entrances that face east or northeast, protected by a small overhang that acts like a baseball cap for your cellar. Speaking of keeping things cool, there is another alternative for the root cellar the Amish use. Their ice houses are like time machines that capture winter's chill and keep it locked away until the sweaty days of summer. The process starts in the heart of winter, when local ponds and lakes freeze solid. When the ice reaches about 8 to 12 inches thick, strong enough to hold a team of horses, the ice harvest begins. Using massive handsaws that look like they could cut down a redwood tree, Amish families slice the ice into uniform blocks weighing around 50 pounds each. It's kind of like cutting a giant frozen cake, except this cake could give you frostbite. The real magic happens in how these ice blocks are stored. Amish ice houses are essentially giant thermoses built into the ground. The walls are typically double-layered, with a foot or more of sawdust packed between them. Fun fact, sawdust has an R-value insulation rating of about 2.2 per inch, which means a foot of packed sawdust provides better insulation than many modern building materials. And here we were thinking sawdust was just something that got in your shoes at the lumber yard. The floor of an ice house starts with a layer of gravel for drainage, because melting ice and standing water are about as compatible as cats and vacuum cleaners. Above the gravel comes a thick layer of straw or sawdust, then the ice blocks are stacked in a precise pattern. Each layer gets a coating of sawdust between the blocks, like making a giant ice sandwich. A properly packed ice house can hold enough ice to last an entire community through the hottest summer months. Here's where the numbers get interesting. A well-built ice house loses only about 20% of its ice through melting over a 6-month period. That means ice harvested in January can still be keeping butter fresh in July. My modern freezer can't even keep ice cream frozen for a month without turning it into a sad, crystallized mess. The entrance to an ice house is another feat of engineering. Most feature a maze-like passage that prevents warm air from rushing in every time the door opens. Some Amish communities called this the cold trap. It's like an airlock on a spaceship, except instead of keeping space out, it's keeping summer at bay. Temperature monitoring in an ice house happens the old-fashioned way, by feel and experience. The Amish have developed an incredibly accurate sense of temperature just by walking into the ice house. If it's cold enough to make your teeth chatter within 5 seconds, everything's working just fine. If you can stand in there comfortably for more than a minute, something's wrong. The ice blocks aren't just for keeping the ice house cold, they're also portable cooling units. Need to keep food cold during a community gathering? Grab a block. Want to make ice cream for a summer celebration? Chip off what you need. The blocks are like nature's batteries, storing winter's cold for when you need it most. One of the most impressive aspects is how the Amish manage the meltwater. Small channels built into the floor lead to a central drain, carrying away any water from melting ice. This water doesn't go to waste. It's often directed to nearby gardens or collected for other uses. It's probably the purest water you'll find, filtered through months of freezing and thawing. The community aspect of ice houses can't be overlooked. Ice harvesting is a group effort that brings families together during the coldest part of winter. It's like a barn raising, except everyone's wearing 3 pairs of socks and trying not to slip on the ice. The whole process becomes a social event, complete with hot drinks and warm food to keep the workers going. But while ice houses are perfect for keeping things frozen, the Amish need different solutions for storing their everyday food items. That's where their expertise in food storage and preservation comes into play. Root cellars might seem simple, but they're organized with the precision of a military operation. The Amish have turned food storage into an art form, with every item having its perfect spot based on its specific needs. It's like a game of Tetris, except instead of falling blocks, you're organizing potatoes and trying not to let anything rot. The storage times in a properly maintained root cellar will blow your mind. Potatoes can last 6 to 8 months, which means you could plant them in spring, harvest in fall, and still be eating them when the next planting season rolls around. Carrots go strong for 4 to 5 months, beets and turnips hang in there for 3 to 4 months, and apples can stay crisp for up to 5 months. Layer management is crucial. The bottom layer typically holds root vegetables because they like it coldest down there. Potatoes get their own corner because they release gases that can make other vegetables sprout. It's like having that one friend who can't help but stir up drama. Here's a fascinating statistic. A well-organized root cellar can store enough food to feed a family of 6 for up to 6 months. That's about 1,200 pounds of produce. The organization required to manage this much food is impressive. Each type of produce needs specific conditions to stay fresh. The Amish have mastered the art of preservation through various techniques. Wax plays a starring role. They dip certain vegetables, like turnips and rutabagas, in melted wax to seal in moisture and keep out air. The result? These vegetables can last up to 6 months. The wax-dipped vegetables look a bit like strange pale candles. But hey, if it works, it works. Storage methods vary widely depending on the food type. Cabbage heads are wrapped individually in newspaper, making them look like little green birthday presents. Apples are nestled in straw or sawdust, each fruit carefully placed to prevent bruising. Onions are braided together and hung from the ceiling, creating natural airflow around each bulb. Egg storage showcases particularly clever innovation. When coated in mineral oil and stored pointed end down in sand or sawdust, eggs can stay fresh for up to 6 months. They're rotated regularly to maintain freshness, much like a very slow game of musical chairs. The mineral oil seals the porous shell, preventing moisture loss while maintaining the egg's natural protective barrier. Cheese storage demonstrates another level of expertise. Hard cheeses are coated in wax and stored on upper shelves where it's slightly warmer. Soft cheeses get special treatment in ceramic crocks that help regulate moisture. The temperature and humidity control must be perfect. Too warm and you'll have a science experiment. Too cold and the cheese's aging process halts. The herb section of a root cellar serves multiple purposes. Beyond food storage, herbs play a crucial role in the cellar's ecosystem. Bundles of dried herbs hang strategically from the ceiling, not just for storage, but also as natural pest deterrents. Sage, thyme, and bay leaves help keep unwanted visitors away while adding a pleasant aroma to the space. Meat preservation shows perhaps the most impressive mastery of storage techniques. Through a combination of smoking, curing, and precise temperature control, meats can last for months without modern refrigeration. Hams and bacon hang from ceiling hooks in carefully chosen spots where temperature and humidity create perfect preservation conditions. The Amish have refined these techniques over generations, passing down the exact details of cure times, smoke density, and storage conditions. But what happens when things don't go exactly as planned? Even the best organized root cellar can face challenges when temperatures start to rise. Just like teenagers trying to sneak in after curfew, warm air has a way of finding its way into places it shouldn't be. When temperatures start creeping up in a root cellar, the Amish don't panic. They've got an arsenal of time-tested solutions that would make a modern HVAC technician jealous. The first warning sign usually comes from the potatoes. These underground early warning systems start sprouting eyes faster than a kid can make excuses for not doing homework. When potato eyes appear earlier than expected, it's a clear signal that the temperature's rising above that crucial 40-degree Fahrenheit mark. The Amish call this the potato alarm clock, nature's way of saying it's time to take action. One traditional fix involves the strategic placement of cooling stones. These aren't just any rocks picked up from the backyard. Large, dense stones are collected during winter's coldest days and stored in shaded outdoor pits. When the cellar starts warming up, these naturally chilled stones are brought in as thermal batteries. A 50-pound stone can absorb enough heat to lower the temperature in a small cellar section by several degrees for up to 48 hours. Ventilation adjustments become crucial during warm spells. The Amish have perfected the art of night cooling, opening vents during the coldest hours, typically 2 to 4 a.m., and sealing them tight before sunrise. It's like giving your cellar a refreshing night breeze without letting in the day's heat. Of course, someone has to wake up at those hours to manage this, making it possibly the world's earliest early bird special. Here's an interesting fact. A rise of just 5 degrees Fahrenheit can cut storage times in half. That's why the Amish use a brilliant rotation system during warm spells. Foods are constantly shifted based on their temperature sensitivity, like a complicated dance where every vegetable needs to find its perfect partner. Items that can handle slightly warmer temperatures, like onions and garlic, get moved to upper shelves while temperature-sensitive foods huddle in the coolest spots. Emergency insulation becomes an art form during heat waves. Extra layers of straw are packed against walls and ceiling. Blankets soaked in cold spring water, then wrung out, are hung in strategic locations. Some families even create temporary cold zones using wet burlap and natural air currents. It's like building a fort to protect your food from the heat invasion. The Amish have also mastered the art of using thermal mass to fight temperature fluctuations. Clay pots filled with water are positioned throughout the cellar. These act as temperature buffers, absorbing heat during warm spells and releasing coolness gradually. A typical root cellar might employ 15 to 20 of these natural coolant systems during challenging weather. One particularly clever trick involves creating a cold air tunnel. A temporary pathway is constructed using boards and blankets, channeling the cooler air from the lowest point of the cellar to where it's needed most. This makeshift air conditioning system works surprisingly well, proving that sometimes the simplest solutions are the best ones. Even the timing of cellar access gets modified during warm periods. The community coordinates their visits, limiting door openings to essential trips and scheduling them for the coolest parts of the day. It's like having a very specific visiting hours policy at a very particular underground vegetable hospital. What might surprise many is how the Amish use their understanding of food biology to combat warming issues. Certain fruits and vegetables release ethylene gas as they ripen, which can speed up the ripening and spoilage of nearby produce. During warm spells, these natural gas producers get quarantined faster than a kid with a cold during flu season. But even with all these clever solutions, sometimes adapting to seasonal changes requires a broader approach to food storage. A root cellar isn't just a winter solution, it needs to work year-round, adapting its role as the seasons change. That's where the Amish's mastery of year-round cellar management comes into play. Winter might be the superstar season for root cellars, but these underground food vaults work harder than a squirrel preparing for winter. They're busy every month of the year. The Amish have developed a fascinating calendar of cellar activities that keeps their food storage system running like clockwork, with each season bringing its own unique challenges and solutions. Spring brings the Great Cellar Cleanup, a tradition that's part spring cleaning and part treasure hunt. Those last winter potatoes hiding in the corners need to be found before they turn into potato plants. The walls get scrubbed with a mixture of vinegar and water to prevent mold, while floors are swept and drainage systems are checked for any winter damage. The Amish take this time to repair any cracks that might have developed during the freeze-thaw cycles of winter. The cleaning process can take several days, with each section of the cellar getting a thorough inspection and necessary maintenance. Did you know that a well-maintained root cellar actually helps plan the next growing season? The Amish keep detailed records of how long different varieties of vegetables lasted through winter. Each family maintains a cellar journal noting which varieties perform best and under what storage conditions. These records, passed down through generations, have helped develop some of the most successful storage crop varieties we have today. Some families have journals dating back over 100 years, providing invaluable information about crop storage patterns and climate changes. Summer transforms the cellar into a natural refrigerator for dairy products and fresh harvests. The temperature difference between the cellar and the outside world can be up to 40 degrees. Early summer vegetables get special treatment with specific spots designated for short-term storage of peas, young carrots, and fresh greens. The Amish have mastered the art of stepping their produce, storing it at progressively cooler temperatures over several days to extend its life. They've found that this gradual cooling can add up to 2 weeks to the storage life of many vegetables. The Amish have a clever system of rotating shelves that follows the sun's patterns throughout the year. In summer, the shelves closest to the entrance get emptied or used only for items that can handle warmer temperatures. Deeper shelves maintain temperatures as low as 38 degrees Fahrenheit even during the hottest months, perfect for storing milk, butter, and fresh eggs. Each shelf level has its own specific purpose, determined by centuries of trial and error. Fall turns the root cellar into Grand Central Station for the harvest season. The Amish can process and store up to 200 pounds of produce per day during peak harvest season. They use a first-in, last-out system for crops harvested on different days, ensuring that each vegetable gets used at its peak quality. Special wooden crates with slatted sides allow for proper air circulation while protecting the produce from damage. These crates are often made from cedar or other naturally rot-resistant woods. The organization during harvest season involves more than just stacking vegetables. Foods get arranged by type, expected storage life, and their ethylene gas production. High ethylene producers like apples and pears get their own dedicated spaces to prevent them from speeding up the ripening of other produce. The Amish use natural materials like straw and sawdust to separate different types of vegetables, creating microenvironments within the cellar. They've even developed special storage techniques for different varieties of the same vegetable. Some potato varieties, for example, store better in complete darkness, while others need minimal light exposure. Winter sees the root cellar in its element, working at peak efficiency. Families check their stored food weekly, following a strict rotation schedule. Any vegetables showing signs of spoilage are immediately removed and added to the compost pile. The Amish have a clever trick of placing aromatic herbs like bay leaves and thyme around storage areas. These natural pest deterrents help protect the food while adding a pleasant scent to the cellar. They also use bundles of dried sage, rosemary, and lavender hung from the ceiling to discourage insects and rodents. One fascinating aspect of year-round cellar management is how the Amish manage airflow between seasons. In winter, they often reduce ventilation to prevent freezing, while summer requires maximum air movement to prevent moisture buildup. They've developed a system of adjustable vents that can be fine-tuned based on outside temperature and humidity levels. Some families even use natural indicators like spider webs to monitor air movement. If the webs move too much, there's too much airflow. If they're completely still, there's not enough. Some Amish families have even incorporated traditional weather prediction methods into their cellar management. They observe natural signs like plant behavior and animal patterns to anticipate weather changes that might affect cellar conditions. This allows them to make proactive adjustments rather than reactive ones. Many have become so attuned to these natural rhythms that they can predict temperature changes several days in advance with surprising accuracy, but sometimes even the most well-planned root cellar needs a backup. That's where the Amish spring house comes into play, offering another fascinating solution for food storage. Another Amish alternative for the root cellar can be found above ground. A spring house is basically nature's refrigerator, powered by nothing but gravity and cold spring water. The key to a spring house is location. You need a natural spring where water bubbles up from underground at a steady 50 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit all year round. The Amish build small structures right over these springs, creating what might be the world's first water-cooled storage system. My electric fridge might have an ice maker, but these spring houses have been keeping butter fresh since before electricity was even discovered. Here's a cool fact. A properly built spring house maintains a temperature within 3 to 4 degrees of the spring water temperature year-round. That means even when it's hot enough outside to fry an egg on a rock, inside the spring house it feels like a crisp fall morning. The stone walls of these buildings are usually about 18 inches thick, which helps maintain the steady temperature better than my neighbor's attempts at insulating his garage with bubble wrap. The interior design of a spring house is a marvel of simple engineering. Channels cut into the floor direct the spring water through the building, creating a series of pools and troughs. Milk and butter containers are partially submerged in these pools, keeping dairy products fresh for days. The Amish discovered that milk stored this way can stay fresh for up to a week. Try doing that with a warm jug of milk left on your kitchen counter. Water flow management in a spring house is crucial. Too much flow creates unwanted splashing and humidity, while too little means the water might get stagnant. The Amish developed clever stone and wood channel systems that regulate water flow perfectly. Some families can adjust their spring house water flow using nothing but a few wooden boards and some strategically placed rocks. It's like having a water park for your food. The upper levels of a spring house serve as dry storage areas. The cool air rising from the water below creates perfect conditions for storing eggs, cheese, and cured meats. It's a 2-for-1 deal. Water cooling on the bottom, air cooling on top. The temperature gradient between these levels can be as much as 10 degrees. Nature's version of a multi-zone cooling system. Most spring houses feature special shelving systems built to handle the humid environment. Cedar boards, naturally resistant to moisture and mold, are common. These shelves are often built with gaps between the boards to allow air circulation, preventing that musty smell that seems to follow moisture around like a lost puppy. One of the most ingenious features is the ventilation system. Small windows near the roof can be opened or closed to control humidity levels. Too much humidity? Open the windows a bit. Getting too dry? Close them up. It's like having climate control without the astronomical electric bill. Some families have been using the same spring house ventilation system for over 100 years. Try getting that kind of longevity from a modern appliance. The Amish also use spring houses as natural air conditioners for nearby buildings. By leaving the spring house door open on extremely hot days, the cool air flows out and into adjacent structures. It's like having central air conditioning, except powered by spring water instead of electricity. One family told me their spring house helps cool their workshop in summer. Now that's what I call a green energy solution. The most fascinating statistic about spring houses: a typical Amish spring house uses about 500 gallons of spring water per day to maintain its cooling effect. That same water then flows out to water gardens or livestock, making it one of the most efficient multi-use systems you'll ever find. Meanwhile, modern refrigerators just sit there, humming away and turning electricity into your monthly power bill. But what if you don't have a convenient spring bubbling up in your backyard? Well, that brings us to another interesting question. Can you build your own root cellar at home? Starting your own root cellar project isn't as complicated as launching a rocket to Mars, though sometimes finding the perfect spot in your yard might feel just as challenging. The good news is that with some basic tools, materials, and a willingness to get your hands dirty, you can create your own food storage paradise. The process starts with picking the right location. A north-facing slope is ideal, but don't worry if your yard is flatter than a pancake. The key is finding a spot that stays naturally cool and drains well. You'll need to dig down about 6 to 8 feet, which means calling your utility companies first unless you want to turn your root cellar project into an impromptu plumbing repair job. The excavation itself will be a hole roughly 8 by 10 feet, with walls sloping slightly inward as you dig deeper, like a pyramid in reverse. This helps prevent cave-ins, which would definitely put a damper on your food storage plans. Here's a fascinating stat. A well-built root cellar can reduce your annual food storage energy costs by up to 90%. The key to achieving this lies in proper construction. You'll need concrete blocks or stones for the walls, at least 12 inches thick, pressure-treated lumber for the entrance and door frame, gravel for drainage, heavy-duty plastic sheeting for waterproofing, and a ventilation system consisting of 2 4-inch pipes, one for intake near the floor and one for exhaust near the ceiling. The drainage system is crucial unless you want your root cellar to double as an underground pool. A 4-inch layer of gravel on the bottom, sloped slightly toward one corner, will keep water from turning your vegetables into soup. The walls require careful construction with waterproofing material on the outside. This isn't the place to cut corners unless you enjoy playing find the leak later. A good entrance design is essential. You'll want 2 doors creating an airlock effect, both sealing tightly but easy to open. Nobody wants to perform a weightlifting routine just to grab some potatoes for dinner. Inside, sturdy wooden shelves made from rot-resistant wood like cedar should be spaced about 12 inches apart vertically, with enough room to walk between them. Bumping into shelves and playing vegetable dominoes isn't as fun as it sounds. Temperature and humidity monitoring are vital signs of your root cellar's health. You're aiming for 32 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit and 85 to 95% humidity, which can be achieved through proper ventilation adjustment. The total cost ranges from $800 to $3,000, depending on whether you do the work yourself or hire help. Less than many spend on a fancy refrigerator, and this one won't add a dime to your electric bill. The best part? Once built, your root cellar will serve generations to come. It's a connection to our past that points the way to a more sustainable future, proving that sometimes the best solutions are the ones that have been right under our feet all along.